Hello and welcome. This is Talk to SSBC, where we discuss cross-cutting issues. Today we are in the National Communication Authority, where we are going to discuss about the International Gateway. Today I am glad to be joined by Engineer Napoleon Adok, the Director General of the National Communication Authority. Welcome to the program. I am also glad to be joined by Engineer Papiti, Executive Director of the International Gateway. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure to host you today on Talk to SSBC, and thank you for giving us your time. To start with, Engineer Napoleon, if you can take us briefly, what is the International Gateway all about?
Thank you very much, Wilson. The International Gateway is basically a traffic control point where international traffic into a country or out of a country are passed through. You know, when we got independent, the United Nations International Telecommunication Union, which is the UN agency which regulates telecommunication, assigned us a code. It gives us Alpha 3 codes. These codes are to be programmed into our switches so that anybody who wants to reach South Sudan anywhere in the world uses those codes. So when those codes are dialed like +22, it automatically directs that traffic to South Sudan. And that traffic is supposed to land at our switch in our country. There are also other codes that are identified South Sudan, like the short code for our country, SSD, is actually short for South Sudan, which now we are using under our cars for some reason. But actually that is our short name for the country, which is used for identifying our passports, our identity, and all that stuff. So International Gateway in the telecoms context is basically a switching, is a highly technical switching program for routing traffic coming in and going out. And that could be in the voice telecommunication, it can be in the data telecommunication. So this is where International Gateway is basically.
Okay, thank you. Engineer Papiti, as the Chief Executive Officer of the International Gateway, what are the advantages of the International Gateway?
Thank you very much. As mentioned by my brother Napoleon, he actually defined it, the gateway itself, the ITU contracts, and I will summarize it in a facility that can use electronic devices to send or receive traffic. That traffic can be voice, can be data, or can be even multimedia, video and other multimedia types. And for us in the South Sudan International Gateway, there was an objective. And that objective, we have 3 objectives for the gateway when it was established. The first thing was the security of the country. The second thing was the actual oversight and visibility to what is happening in the telecom sector to the government. And the last one was revenue generation. So when I was in the South Sudan International Gateway, what we were doing is the establishment process of that gateway, so that it reaches what is needed to fulfill these objectives. But it was a voice gateway. All other gateways were not yet established. Only voice, international voice gateway.
Okay, Engineer Napoleon, back to you. You talked about the codes like the 211 and SSD. I know the 211 is functional. Is the SSD functional?
Yeah, the SSD is functioning. That's why you have a passport.
Okay.
If you look in your passport, there should be a short code written SSD. So when immigration computer system worldwide, based on IATA standard, they basically don't write South Sudan in full, they SSD. That is functioning, along with our top-level domain, which is the digital name for South Sudan, .ss, which we should be using for all our internet coming out of South Sudan. All the websites based in South Sudan should have .ss.
But still operational.
It is operational. The TLD is operational of South Sudan. And we've now started issuing domain for government institution, and that's why you see .gov. NCA today is nca.gov.ss and not .com. Anything. That means it is a website identified by our identity as an independent country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Engineer Papiti, you talked about revenue generation. You have been the chief executive officer, I think, for quite some time. How much has your institution, or during that period, how much has your personnel raised in terms of monetary funds?
To talk of funds, I think I will talk of the agreement itself, because there was a management agreement signed between the government and the Republic of South Sudan, represented by the Minister of ICT, and a partner. That partner is a Swiss company, and therefore there were issues of operational costs and shares. So it is really difficult to say this much, but what I can say is we generate revenue, and that revenue, there is an operational cost being, first of all, taken to cover the generator, fuels, and many other operational costs, and even the transmission. And then the remaining part, according to the agreement, is actually divided. And in the agreement, there were two different stages. There was a stage of whereby the partner takes the 60% and then leave the 40% to the government, and then for 2 years. And then after 2 years, is 50-50. Now we are at the stage of 50-50 for 5 years. And then the remaining 3 years is 20 for the partner and 80 for the.
Thank you. Engineer Napoleon, the President issued an order cancelling the board of the International Gateway. What is happening now with the gateway, with the International Gateway?
First of all, to answer that properly, we need to trace the history of the gateway. Before independence, South Sudan had an ambition to establish its own gateway. The building we are in today in Gumbo was actually part of that vision. It was built specifically to house an international gateway for South Sudan. And South Sudan actually went into process of establishing its gateway much before independence. And our aspiration was to ensure that our traffic as South Sudan should be originating from South Sudan and terminate in South Sudan. It should not go through a third party in order for us to have a sovereignty of our traffic and a sovereignty of our data. Now, government had put in plan to acquire gateway. Government has not been able to actualize those plans due to lack of resources and money. And that could be understood because of competing priority. So gateway was not funded. It was the wise decision of our Honorable Minister Makwe to consider that instead of us waiting for government money, we decided to do a partnership with a private entity known as the Public-Private Partnership, the PPP model. In this PPP model is what Papiti is referring to as an agreement. It was agreed that this private entity will procure equipment. They will procure equipment, they will help us install, train our young people to operate our own gateway, and in return we refund back through the proceeds of the gateway to pay back this particular entity. And the agreement we have now in place is actually for 10 years. That this company, during the 10 years, we shall share with them the proceeds of the gateway. And how does that proceed of the gateway come from? Whenever somebody calls internationally into our country, there is a certain fraction of that amount goes to the government. That is what we are referring to here. The other portion goes to the owner of the telephone company, let's say MTN or Zain. They must, because the traffic is being terminated into their network, known as the termination fee. So the PPP model now, it has been running for the last 3 years. We're going to the 4th year now. And we have reached now a stage. We started when initially it was 60-40. 60 to the private company, 40 to the government. Now we have moved, we are now at 50-50. And in 2 years, government will be taking 60 and 40. So until the end of it, that the equipment is handed over to us.
Which one is that company?
It is known as the MGI. It's based in Switzerland. They are a carrier for traffic. This is a company which basically carry the traffic of South Sudan and then distribute it to different destinations. Because the way the gateway work is like the same way the banking work. where you have what they call the so-called correspondent bank. So anybody who is transporting, sending money, your bank in Juba will definitely deal with one correspondent bank, which will then handle the transfer. So with us in telecom, it's similar. We also have equivalent of corresponding bank. So MGI is like our traffic carrier. So it deliver our traffic, then it will now distribute it. Which one goes to Australia or go to Canada or go to America, it is distributed from the switch. And the same thing, anybody calling South Sudan, the MGI receive that traffic, reroute it to us in Juba for us to take it to individual telephone. So this is a highly technical process that must run 24 hours because you can't have a time when the thing breaks down. So what was done, the PPP model was in place. The ministry put in place a management committee which oversee the operation jointly with that private firm. And that committee was formed using a board established by the ministerial order. It is that ministerial order that the presidency has council and put in place that the gateway, according to the law, should be licensed out. As a regulator, our job is to do license. We don't get involved in commercial business. So the agreement, the presidential order is asking me to come up with a legal framework, like the way NCA is mandated to regulate all communication. Gateway is like any other communication facility. So my job now is to come up with laws, a model which can enable the gateway to operate within the legal framework that is defined by law and according to the Act of Communication. So that is my job now. That's what I am supposed to do.
That's great. Yeah. Engineer Papiti, during the 3 years with the MGI, how was the cooperation?
You know, the agreement was signed in 2017, and then in 2018, by late 2018, by then I was the chief technical officer and Napoleon was the CEO. We managed to that traffic can flow through the gateway. Then we started from 2019, and become part of the establishment because it was not fully established. So we were working on that establishment, and we were working with MGI to complete the parts that are not completed in the data center in the gateway. Not only that, but also the expansion, because we have one site here and another site, redundant site in different places. So we wanted them to have full capacities together, so that if one site is down because of the international traffic, we can take all of them. So we were working with MGI and to really see what needs to be implemented.
On the part of capacity building.
Yeah, we have just started recently the training. We have sent engineers to Switzerland and Germany for the training because we are also installing a switch which will enable us to carry data, voice directly from South Sudan to one of the carriers. And that is actually what we are trying, such that later on, if the gateway becomes a South Sudanese entity fully, then we are able to actually carry traffic to any of the carriers. But at the moment, as Napoleon mentioned, is from Juba here to Switzerland to Zurich first, and then from Zurich it is distributed all over the world. But we were doing some upgrades in the system to make it also be able to take, and we have even taken Safaricom as an example, and there is an agreement with us with Safaricom to actually take our traffic and also redistribute it in the region. So this is what is happening.
Okay. Engineer Napoleon, Engineer Papiti said he talked about two things, that the international gateway it brings in maybe security to the government or generally to the country, and also the revenue collection or the revenue to the country. How is it doing now in terms of security and the collection of the revenue?
In terms of security, our country is exposed because the gateway establishment is not completed. There are aspects of gateway that we have not yet operationalized. And as you heard from Papiti, right now we are still sending our traffic to Switzerland. We really would wish not to send our traffic anywhere. We want to be able to collect it here and dispatch it here to its destination. There is also one aspect of the gateway that is not completed. The gateway operates in conjunction with other connectivities like the central bank and the internet traffic. So far, we still don't have in place a data gateway. And it is part of the reason why you see our internet is extremely expensive, because we are channeling our internet throughout, our traffic of internet is going out through other countries, third party, wherever we are getting internet from, simply because we don't have a local looping for our traffic. It is part of the reason because we don't have in-country servers. If we establish our gateway properly and it is worked with according to international standard, then we will be able to attract content data network providers like Google, like Yahoo, like Facebook, or other guys who manage network. They'll bring the servers here so that you can browse locally. Right now you are not browsing locally, you are browsing international because you don't have the local traffic. It is part of the reason also our internet content has not been really sovereign in nature. All our traffic now, there are a lot of young people generating contents, and because there's no local hosting, so their content, they don't get paid for it. Because normally in other countries, if you have video YouTube channel with more than 15,000 followers, at least that you can get monetization from it. Today, our young people who are very innovative are failing to be rewarded for their work because it is categorized as belonging to those countries which supplies us internet. So this is part of the reason why I think the gateway is incomplete. But now, of course, we have a task at hand. The president has directed us specifically to complete this process and provide it with a legal framework where it will work. And we hope that before the end of the year, we must have a full gateway, including the internet gateway, so that we can take charge of our internet connectivity and our kids can enjoy internet at affordable rate. And we can now make use of the technology that is needed online, because you heard a lot of big words being thrown around like e-government, e-services. You can't do anything without your network. Right now, what we are preaching is not really what is on the ground. We lack the facility. And this is the first step, and I must commend the work those of Papiti have done, and particularly our minister, for having this vision. I think the ball now is on our side to make it practical as technicians.
That's very good. Let's go for a short break. When we come back, you will tell us whether the international gateway will solve the issue of the high tariffs, because the public is crying really so much about high prices. Viewer, we are going for a short break. Please don't go back. We are coming right again. Hello viewer, welcome back from that short break. We are still with Engineer Adok, who is the Director General of the National Communication Authority, and Engineer Papiti, the Executive Director of International Gateway. Welcome back from that short break. Welcome back, guys. Let's talk about MTN and Zain. These are the only telecom operating companies in South Sudan. What is the problem? Why can't other investors also invest in this area? Or your requirements are chasing away maybe the investors? What's happening, Engineer Adok?
First of all, I want to correct you. It's not only MTN and Zain. We have Digital, which is entirely owned South Sudanese mobile network. So we have three operators.
It's still very small. It's just maybe less than a year.
But it still exists as a network. As we speak today, Digital has already more than 70 sites across South Sudan. Any network with 70 sites is not small. Jamtel had only 45 sites, and we all remember it.
Yes.
So you can imagine that Digital has surpassed what Jamtel used to be. Okay, and hopefully before end of the year, it will probably go to 200 sites. They are now operational in Malakal, in Wau, in Bor, in Numili. Hopefully the next one will be in Yambio, another place. So without sounding like I am a marketing officer of Digital, but just to tell you that there are other services. Yes, telecom industry is a very competitive industry, and it is also capital intensive. A company like MTN is a huge company, is a group. It is in more than 23 countries in Africa. Company like Zain is again also a huge company. It is in more than 15 countries in Middle East and some in Africa. So these are not just small companies, they are huge companies.
Yes.
They have the muscle to endure in case there are financial difficulties.
Yeah.
Now, what makes it difficult for telecom companies to come in to our territory?
Yeah.
First of all, we are a new country. Our laws are not clear to many people. And if you read about these multiple taxations, difficulties of taking supply, to say, for example, if you have a tower in a place like Fangak, which can only be accessed by boat, taking fuel there with the conflict is quite costly. So there are a lot of logistical challenges that any investor is comparing operation overhead versus his investment return.
Yes.
And he see that if I do all this and I'm not getting money in return, why should I go into South Sudan? That is one. The other one is that also our economy hasn't been stable. You know now suddenly the dollar is disappearing again. The pound is today 7 something. So this lack of stability is also itself contributing to investor resistance or hesitancy.
Yeah.
So a lot of investors come and see, they say, let's wait, will the peace agreement hold? Thank God the peace agreement now has been holding for the last 3 years. And I really, that is the major if condition. The other one is the supply. In our country, we are entirely depending a lot of imported things. You import fuel, you import services like cement to build towers.
Yeah.
NCA, we experience ourselves, we have built quite a number of towers and we know how much it costs us. To bring up just one tower alone is more than 150,000 US dollar. Just to build a tower 50 meters high.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've got to ferry in cement. So there is, in that side, there is the business risk that people are determining. Now what we try to do as a regulator is to try to bridge the gap to make the unattractive attractable to people.
Yeah.
And trying, what do? We basically lower our regulatory demand in order to encourage the investors to bring the services to our people. So one of the things that has been very difficult for us to control is the inflation. Telecommunication worldwide is calculated in US dollar for unification of transaction, because we don't talk to ourselves. We talk to Mexico, we talk to Russia, we talk to America, we talk to Australia. You know, we have a large diaspora.
Yeah.
And when our calls are sent out, we pay those people in dollars. And when calls are made inside, the switches are paid in dollars. So when tariff is formulated, the last tariff we have was formulated in 2016, which makes us 1 minute is 4 cents US dollar cent. Now in 4 cents US dollar. So in 2016, 4 cents converted to that to SSP was close to something like 17 or something like that. SSP at that time. You can imagine. So every time the value of pound drop, that means the tariff increase, because the 4 cent rate of it changes every time you change it. So, and that is why you heard the tariff kept going up. Yeah. What has even made it very difficult is the importation of connectivity. The internet we are using in our country is imported. We still do not have our local routing. We have not invested in what we call backbone network. A backbone network is like a highway.
Yeah.
A highway can only be built by a government. Without normally Juba Road, today cars would be taking 1 week between Numili and Juba to bring goods.
Yeah.
And that time goods were very expensive because it takes a long time to bring them to Juba.
Yes.
So perhaps the transport people have moved ahead than telecommunication.
Yeah.
We are still ferrying our traffic through third party. Yeah. We have put on record asking the government to prioritize telecommunication in order to reduce costs by investing in network, core network. We need a fiber optic connecting our major cities from Juba to Wau, from Juba to Malakal, from Juba to Yambio, from Juba to Torit, so that we have a backbone, so that SSBC can actually be seen in Wau. Today, SSBC in Wau is seen by those with satellite.
Yeah.
You know why? Because you have no means of transporting your content.
Yeah.
That is why the cost always is bothering us.
With the international gateway, is it going to solve that problem?
Actually, let me add something first to what Napoleon said, is this issue of tariffs. People are confusing between the tariffs, which is the cost of the core of the services, and the exchange rate. What is actually happening these days is the exchange rate. You can see that our currency is fluctuating against the dollar.
That's right.
So whenever the currency drops, that rate goes up because it's the cost of those services.
Yeah.
And that is why it kept on going until it is actually you want to reach the market, the free market, because that is the real cost of the USD against our currency. The international gateway has only one part of this issue of the cost of the tariffs, because there are two parts. One part is the local network and local calls, which does not pass through the international gateway, and therefore is different. But what passes through the international gateway is the international voice traffic. And that voice traffic, yes, if we manage to control the gateway, we will manage to control the terminating cost of the traffic, and therefore if we manage to control that terminating cost of the traffic, we will be able to lower the cost of the calls.
It is true, that is part of it. We have a huge diaspora. Many of our people are out as a result of that long war. And today, a lot of young people are using internet to make calls, things like social media, like Messenger. They use that WhatsApp call. But you realize that if I am somebody in America and my mother lives in Mapere or in Adok, she has no WhatsApp. I will have to call her with a normal phone.
That's right.
And that is why the call for her to cost that person, making it really prohibitive for people to talk longer, because the gateway is still routed throughout. And that's why we need to take charge of our gateway to regulate, as Engineer Papiti said, to regulate now the termination call. Because right now, anybody calling South Sudan from international is charged highest close to almost 34 cents US dollar.
Very expensive.
Okay, very, very expensive. And that has encouraged what we call sim boxing, illegal routing, because when people cannot get official routing, they create a fake route through internet. Sometimes you receive a call from somebody in Canada, but it will show up in your phone as a Zain number or as a Safaricom number. That means that call has been routed through an illegal route. Okay, and this is often done by criminals.
Yeah.
And through that also, because your official channel is very, very expensive. So criminals find a way to bring traffic so that people pay cheaper. And these are consequences because the gateway we have is still really taking too many hops.
Yeah.
Like here, we send all our coal to Switzerland, and then from Switzerland they are sent, and everywhere where they go, a charge is added. So, and even when it's coming back, a charge is deducted from us. So the money even which we get from the gateway is not really sufficient because we are sharing it with all the people who are delivering it or bringing the coal. So this is where the cost is. So when we take charge of gateway, it will have an impact in international traffic. We want to encourage that our people to coal. Otherwise, it will be difficult to have. I'm promoting rural connectivity. If people cannot be reached, the idea is to connect our rural part with those in urban centers. And some people here like to make call on data. Your grandmother doesn't have WhatsApp.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, Engineer Papiti, what obstacles are you facing while implementing the international gateway?
The obstacles is actually the speed that we wanted to implement all what should be there in the gateway. And that speed was not there. Things were going slow, and therefore we could not complete all what was needed to finish the first phase of it, which was the voice. And then when we finished the voice, then we could have gone to the data, what Napoleon was talking about, because we are now only using voice calls, but we are supposed also to have the data gateway. We are supposed to be able to now send and receive SMS, send and receive videos and so on. This was not there in the gateway.
Okay. So, Engineer Napoleon, we talked about digital, Zain and MTN. When is VivaCell coming back? Do you have any plan as a regulatory authority in South Sudan?
First of all, that is a question to be answered by Bivacel, because in our record, Bivacel, we did not expel them. So they decided to withdraw on their own. Now, because the case is in the International Arbitration Court, we are restricted by court not to divulge more than this. But so far, Bivacel will come back when they feel they want to come, and it is best for them to answer. As a regulator, they still hold our license. They still hold our resources, which is the frequencies, and the court is with them. So we believe that they will come back when they feel that the situation is meet their requirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Niletel?
Niletel does not exist. Never existed.
Why? It never existed. I think it was there about 2 years ago.
No, that was a licensee.
It's a government telecommunication company.
Yes, it is a licensee that had been granted a license to operate a national operator as a government network. But they failed to comply by law to pay the fees, and we revoked the license. So for me, that's why I tell you it does not exist. Because if you are not licensed, how do you exist?
You cannot operate.
So if the sign is still up there, it is illegal. We will take legal measures to ensure that they don't mislead the public. Otherwise, the Niletel does not exist, and unless they reapply and to acquire the license again.
Okay.
That is it.
What is the future of the international gateway?
As is been said, NCA now has been given the responsibility and ordered by the president to take charge and to also manage the gateway. And what is happening at the moment, I'm writing a report about what has happened, and then now will be the National Communication Authority to take charge of this and then take the responsibility and see what next. What is needed is the legal status. So people should work on the legal framework for the international gateway.
The international gateway is under NCA. It is under the management of the NCA.
Now, yes.
Now,
yes. As per the orders.
and who is in charge of it?
Now we have to, because it was transferred to us, and what we did instead of, because there's a large number of young people that are deployed there, which we care a lot, because this is an employment for our young youth and also training them.
Yeah.
So we have given them, put them under interim management and appointed Engineer Papiti to act as a director for International Gateway Services temporarily until we can formulate the new legal entity. And there are ways International Gateway are done by a regulator, and these ways globally, the International Gateway are privatized. They are licensed out as part of mobile. Anybody who owns communication and want to communicate abroad can acquire a gateway license as an addendum to their license. This is one model. The other model, a government can set up their own license the way it has been and manage the traffic and control and lease the traffic to those ones. So what I'm working on now, as following the directive from the president, is to formulate the pros and cons of each model and present a technical view what we think should be done. The best practice in the region is that it is licensed out. Or if the country has a national operator, which is a telephone operator which is owned by government, they are called national operator, then normally gateway is run as part of that, as a national operator. But in our case now, we don't have a national operator. So we will now have to make all this proposal to the leadership in consultation with the various stakeholders. There are many stakeholders involved. There are security, there are revenue assurance, and there are us as regulator, because we also want to ensure that the best practice is done. Because for us, gateway is just like any other communication, like the issues of tariff, of termination call at high price that make it difficult for people to call home. It is my domain to determine that this tariff should not go beyond. It has to be within affordability. Even our diaspora need to make calls. They might be living in America or in other Western world which we perceive as better resources, but even those people are working hard and they would like to call. And if call is difficult, then we are denying them benefits of communication. And our motto, as you read, is communication for all, and make it affordable and available.
Yeah. So who is in charge? Where are you reporting to?
I'm reporting with the Director General of National Communication.
Okay. So you are in charge.
I am in charge as far now.
That's very good. Yeah.
To effect reforms.
That's very good.
Yeah.
So where do you want to see the fiber optic? You talked about the fiber optic, which is going to happen maybe very soon, and that is where the internet will go down and so many things will happen. When do you think that will happen?
There are initiatives that we have initiated since on our last year activities, and one of the things we are targeting to push down the prices of internet connectivity.
Yeah.
And the best way is to increase the level. Since the government has no money to put into fiber optic, we've decided that we increase the number of licenses.
Yeah.
We encourage more people to bring internet, so that competition bring down the prices. This is one model we approach.
Yes.
This is the best now because the government has not put in their money. You might have read that many of our public sometimes make unwarranted comparison. They say, oh, it is cheap in Uganda, it is cheap in Kenya. But what they don't know is that those government actually invested public money to build communication, because they do know that communication is the backbone of driving the economy.
That's right.
And I do believe our government also share the same vision.
Yeah.
It is probably the lack of resources, and I believe the government share this vision. I remember July of 2021, our president made a statement asking the Minister of Road to integrate communication along with road construction. And we have been working now with those companies building road construction to lay fiber ducts. Because fiber is a glass. First thing you have to put in place is a pipe that we call a duct, like those water pipes. You put them under the road so that you can blow the glass through later on. So this, I think, is a great initiative that is very hopeful. One of the process now is about to be completed between Numili and Juba, and soon we shall have almost a government-owned fiber optics. We are also partnering with other companies now. Torit is connected, and it is going to go live, and hopefully to Kapoita and to Kenya, creating alternative. Our vision as a country which is landlocked is for us to open up connectivity with our neighbors. We are talking to Sudan to give us access to the Red Sea, so that we get fiber through the north to come to in Upper Nile and land it in Malakal. We are also talking to the Ethiopian to open up the fiber from the Ethiopian and from the Djibouti port, so that we can bring it through the eastern bank. Uganda has already done a great job, so we're getting 2 cable, and Kenya. So when we get these 4 cable in our country, internet reliability is known as redundancy. So the more redundancy you have, then there will be no fiber cut like we are experiencing now with the current licensees. So these efforts are now going on concurrently, and we are incentivizing the investors, lowering our demand, but we don't lower our quality. And this is the dispute I have with some operators who wanted to take fiber by putting up poles across the country. We told them, no, we can't use that model because our country is still full of forests. They can burn, and again we will be cut off. So if we are doing a link between here and WOW, it got to be laid underground. And the best option is those making road to help us to bury it. As you clear road, you lay also fiber. So these are the program we have. Some are at advanced stage, hopefully. And sooner, I don't want to give it a date. I want to keep it as a surprise, because I have been attacked so much in this issue of data that I decided to do things quietly, and the result you will feel in your pocket, hopefully. But my vision is to equalize the cost of connectivity, the same with our pair in East Africa. So the price of internet should be the same as it is in Kampala, in Nairobi, in Juba, and in Khartoum. That is my vision. That is my target. It may not happen overnight, but at least we are heading there.
That's very good. Is the government planning to have its own service provider company?
We have it already. Actually, we have a cabinet resolution back in 2012 that the government want to set up a national operator. That's how they are still looking for a partner, because government don't have capital to put in. As I told you, telecommunication is a capital intensive. Without putting in, you need at least a minimum of 50 to 100 million to set up a telephone company. So I'm sure government priorities are not really to set up telecommunication. I would think they would rather build a road or set up a hospital. But still, it is there.
Yeah.
And we are open for any applicant that want to operationalize it. The ministry is the leadership in that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We hope that one can happen.
Thank you.
What is your last word to the people of South Sudan?
What I can say is that we always keep hope that things will change to the better. So that I can tell the people of South Sudan.
Thank you.
Well, as a person entrusted to improve communications, is that we are at work, and this year in particular we are launching quite surprising technologies, particularly to reduce, all these initiatives are geared toward reducing the cost of connectivity. And connectivity is our priority. So we prioritize rural connectivity so that our people can get a basic telephony, and also because there's a lot of young people working day and night, we want to make sure that the data connection and data prices are pushed down as soon as possible. And this year we are optimistic that before March we should see a serious development in the data section. At least the data prices must come down. We are not waiting for fiber. We are also engaging other satellite providers which are providing a cheaper bandwidth. And right now we are at the talk with the Starlink, which is the Elon Musk satellite that is providing a low orbit satellite connectivity at a very low price. We are at advanced stage discussing this. If this materializes, we want to make internet connectivity available in our remotest village and schools at the cheapest rate.
Engineer Napoleon and Engineer Papiti, thank you for talking to SSBC.
Thank you, Wilson.
We hope to talk to you again some other time on a different topic.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Viewer, we have come to the end of this program. See you again next week for another exciting episode. See you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.